Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies, where we explore all things cinema. I want to welcome back to the show James Naremore, who is Emeritus Chancellor's Professor of Communication and Culture and English at Indiana University. He is the author of a number of books, including More Than Night, Film Noir in Its Contexts, and Acting in the Cinema. And we're talking about his latest book, Cinema Then and Now, James Naremore, Conversations with Craig S. Simpson. James, welcome. Thanks so much for being here again.
Thank you, Robert. Glad to be here.
Good to have you. I really enjoyed the book. I felt like I was in your classroom. Really ate up all your opinions, and your wealth of experience is overwhelming. So I
Well,
really enjoyed it.
it was really a fun book to do. So, and easy too.
Did you correct me if I'm wrong, but you both did the interviews through email? Was it all done
That's
through
right.
email? Yeah.
That's right.
Did you prefer that over talking in person?
Yes,
Because
yes,
the
because I knew it had to be in print.
right.
And this way we lost something in spontaneity, but we raised the level in terms of readability, I think.
Mm. And how did you both edit it afterwards? How was that process?
It didn't require much editing. I mean, I I looked over all the responses carefully, made little revisions if they needed them. No radical changes, nothing that wasn't in response to a question that Craig had asked. Um, and so the book went very smoothly. It didn't really need any editing. It needed maybe some copy editing
Mm.
or checks for errors and that sort of thing. That's all.
And why Craig S. Simpson as a
Well,
collaborator on this?
actually, I don't. I guess you know Paul Cronin, who
Yes, yeah,
edits that Sticking Place Books thing.
right.
He called me on the phone one day and said, I'm doing this series of interview books. We'd like to have you on there. Can you get a graduate student or somebody to do an interview with you? And I thought, no, I can't do that. I don't have a graduate student. I've been retired for 25 years. I don't have a graduate student around I can do that with. But he was very persistent. I wasn't sure about it. But then it occurred to me about Craig. Craig was a librarian at the Lilly Library here in Bloomington for many years. He was in charge of the film collections, and he and I knew each other well. We'd had many conversations about movies, and he had moved to California to San Jose. But we stayed in touch and email occasionally. And so I asked him if he would do it, and he said sure. And so that was it.
Mm. I wanted to get your opinion about a few things. One of them that comes up is plays adapted to screen, and you talked about how you felt theater is the closest to cinema. Can you talk a little bit about why that is, or how that is?
Well, it's closer to cinema than music is. It's closer to cinema than a novel is. I mean, you've got actors, you've got uh, uh, stage settings, you've got blocking to deal with. Uh, so it seems to me of the arts, the one that's probably closest to cinema. I'm not saying it's identical, obviously. Film, as I've said in the book, there are two attitudes toward doing adaptations of a play, and one and the most predominant one is what the French call ventilating the play, or what the Americans call opening out the play,
Right.
where you invent scenes outside the basic proscenium limitations of theater, and you carry dialogue out. People are driving a car, or they're doing something else. And the other is what Andre Bazin thought was best, and what Hitchcock thought was best, is to observe the spatial dynamics of theater.
Mm.
And so I gave an example of a film, one film by Hitchcock that does observe those things, and the other a film by Sidney Lumet, a film about plays that does not, that ventilates it. I think they're both good films, but especially the Hitchcock film.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I've always wondered why Robert Bresson would say that most movies are like filmed plays. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
I always wondered why he. I mean, I know why he felt that because
yeah.
he thought they.
Well, Bresson, I guess, is responsible for the the ultimate novelistic uh, adaptation. It's Diary of a Country Priest,
Right.
and he does it just practically with all the words of the book.
Yeah. Yeah, I always am sort of conflict. I know what he's getting at in terms of, well, they should
Yeah,
just use the tools of the craft, but even to the point where he didn't want any acting. So as
yeah,
you know, his acting is so muted.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
do you think he was right? I mean, I guess there's no
Pardon
right
me?
or wrong. Do you think he's right about that, or like that so many
No,
movies are plays? Or
I don't necessarily agree with him. I think it's interesting. I mean, he had a very interesting approach to acting too. You
yeah,
know, he thought actors were models, not actors, and they
right.
had to do exactly what he told them to do, and do it over and over and over. Uh,
Mm,
but he's a great filmmaker. But
yeah,
he's one of a kind, I think.
certainly, certainly. The would you another thing that I you're talking about what would be important for film critics and scholars to learn. I was wondering how would it benefit critics to take a psychology course to learn something, get a deeper insight into human nature? Does that help with criticism, do you think?
No, I don't necessarily think that. I guess what I was speaking about was that I thought it's good for critics to have a fairly large cultural knowledge to know uh, something about the history of literature, the history of theater, the history of movies,
Right.
um, and not just a parochial knowledge, but it's better good if they know about foreign movies. And
Yeah.
anyway, so the better the critic's knowledge of uh, literature, drama, philosophy, politics, um, the better the criticism, I think.
Mm. And a tour theory also comes up. I mean, I'm sure most people would say that directors have been given the most attention in terms of a tour theory. But
That's right.
is that because the entire production is guided by the director? So we don't necessarily think of an actor as an auteur, or a writer, or a
Right, right.
cinematographer.
Yeah. Well, it is true that the director is ostensibly anyway in charge of the whole thing. But of course, uh, making a movie involves the help of an awful lot of people. In fact, there's a whole section of the interview book where we talk about collaboration in movies, and
Hmm.
that's essential. You can't make a movie with most movies anyway without a good script,
Right.
and you need actors. If I think it was Scorsese who said that 90% of directing a movie is in the casting.
Right.
Um, and uh, so anyway, the director has an awful lot of decisions to make, critical decisions every single day. And so he's sort of standing behind everything, and she is, and and guiding the overall quality of the thing. And I of course have as I explained in the book, because of my age and background, I was heavily influenced by the auteurist movement. And so most of my work has been about directors.
Hmm. Hmm. Is that something that you think needs to sort of evolve? Should there be people writing books about, writers as auteurs or
Well,
cinematographers?
not necessarily. I think that there are some books about writers.
Yeah.
Um, I'm contemplating right now. I don't know if I'll do it, but writing a book about crime fiction and movies, crime novelists and movies.
Mm,
And the idea is to pick 7 important crime novelists and the movies that have been made from their work. Um, and um, so I think there's an important interplay between literature and film. Um, and so anyway, that's one approach.
mm. I haven't had a chance to read your acting book yet, but I plan to. And I was curious if as since you're not an actor, was it harder to write that book?
It was very hard to write the book. It's hard to write about acting.
Yeah.
Um, and I fell into it kind of by accident. And um, at first wasn't sure how to do it. I think my wife saved me because she introduced me to some books she found in the library. And Uh, and I realized uh, there's a kind of anthropological or sociological school of writing about performance in everyday life. Um, when you meet with people socially, you're performing
Yeah,
yourself for
for
those
sure.
people. And when you and I are doing this interview right now, we're performing.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, and so it was important to think about the relationship between that kind of performance and theatrical or motion picture performance. And you can go through and make a kind of a rhetoric of those things. So I didn't approach the acting book in order to teach people how to act. What I did was try to write a book that was closely descriptive of acting in movies and
Mm.
you know evaluating some great star performances and also in a couple of cases write about the acting and of the entire cast in a film. So that's how I went about it.
Did you ever take a class yourself, or I know you made a film, but did you ever try acting
Yeah,
yourself?
I no, I never took acting classes. I I think if you've read the book, you know that I went into part of it is a sort of memoir about my past.
Yeah.
And the reason I got to go to college was that I was for some reason a, a really good public speaker.
Mm.
And I won these public speaking contests and got a scholarship. Um, um, but I was not successful. I tried acting on the stage a couple of times, one in a little theater company in the town where I grew up in.
Oh.
And I was good in one play, but nobody wanted to cast me for anything else. I don't think I was a good actor on stage anyway.
Did that experience help at all with the book, with writing the
No,
book?
no,
No?
no, I don't
Okay.
think so. No.
Okay.
As I say, I really was trying to write from the point of view of somebody in the audience.
Oh, I see. Okay. Right.
So,
Okay.
right.
Yeah, because I'm planning to read it because as an actor, I'm also an actor, and I
Are
even
you?
find it hard. Yeah, I even find it hard to write about it, and I know even
Yeah.
acting teachers have found it hard to write about it.
Yeah. It's like walking on water.
Yeah, it's
It's very,
challenging.
very difficult. Yeah. Yeah. And so I don't know. I hope you'll like it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I will. So I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to reading it. Some of the critics that you like or scholars that you recommend people check out, like Jonathan Rosenbaum, who I've on my show a number of times. Um, I know you. I was curious what you thought of the writings of Ray Carney. Is he someone that's ever interested you or that you've liked over the years?
I don't want to say bad things about people, but I'm not particularly interested in Ray Carney's stuff. But I'm sorry. Has
Yeah,
he
no,
been on
not
your show?
he. I don't think he'll do a show like this.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
reason I ask is because I'm in a Facebook group and when he comes up, they're always very heated discussions.
Very,
Uh,
always very what discussions?
very heated. They get really um
Discussions about him.
about his writing because he's the way
Yeah,
in
yeah.
yeah.
I'm not a fan. So, but that's as far as I'll go.
Okay, okay, fair enough. Are there other film books that you would recommend people read that
You
you've
mean by
enjoyed?
by critics?
Yeah, by anyone that you.
Uh, oh gosh, that's too many things to think about. Uh, I think I said in the interview book that I tried to avoid talking a lot about academic writers because I was afraid that I would forget to mention somebody I know, and there's so many colleagues in my past who've written fine books about film. So I limited that. I did spend a fair amount of time talking about David Bordwell, who uh, I think taught me an awful lot. I mean, his writings, and developed what I think is close to a true poetics of film, the sense of how the narrative works and the possibilities of it and so forth.
Mm,
So I think I wrote about him most. But I like Joe McBride. I
yeah,
like
me too.
Jonathan. I think I've written about four critics who were very important to me in my life, who were not academic critics necessarily. James A.G., Manny Farber, um, Andrew Saris, and Jonathan. Those are the people who wrote reviews and were
Yeah.
journalists as well as writers about film, and they had different approaches, different tastes. Uh, but those were important to read. I think my discovery of James Agee as a young man, the book Agee on Film, was really an important moment in my life. I was fascinated with that book, even though I hadn't seen most of the films he was writing about.
Mm. I couldn't help but wonder if you noticed this. It seems to be that nowadays there's a great emphasis on asking people for for lists of their favorite films,
Yeah.
whether it's on Letterboxd or the Sight and Sound
Yes. Yeah.
list every
Yeah.
10 years. This trend toward lists, if it is a trend, it's just something I've noticed. I wonder if that's because of streaming has so many movies to watch that people just don't know. They turn to critics or actors or whatever
Yeah.
I wonder
Yes,
if you
that
had an
could be.
opinion on that.
That could be. I think that like I guess the New York Times just had a list of the was it the 100 or anyway best movies of the 21st century. Uh,
Right.
and that's a little early to start contemplating those things, it seems to
Yes.
me. Uh,
25 years
uh,
in.
yeah, right. As we talked about in the interview book with me, I've done the Sight and Sound poll twice,
Yeah.
and I think that's a very interesting poll because uh, so many critics, filmmakers participate in it. And so it's interesting to see what they come up with. Um, but most polls, I think, are of maybe they are helpful guides for people who haven't seen a movie.
Hmm.
I don't think the New York Times list was very useful, and it was also provincial. I mean, it was pretty much is pretty much about Hollywood. There were one or two foreign films in it. Uh, and I think one of the most important things maybe a list like that can do is name films that you've never heard of
Hmm.
that are rare that aren't talked about all the time. Anyway, yeah,
Is
I
when
think
you
so far my favorite film of the year so far is uh, One Battle After Another.
Oh, I
It,
still
it,
have to see it.
yeah, you got to see it in the theater.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I thought it was terrific. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm planning to see it, so I'm gonna definitely see it. When you made your list, you imagine you wanted
For Sight and
it
Sound.
for the sight and sound was to make it as diverse as you could, and was
Well, the
that your
way,
goal with it?
there's no right way to do it.
Right.
The way the system works is, like if Citizen Kane becomes the number one film, that's because the most people mentioned Citizen Kane, not
Yeah.
necessarily that they listed it as number one.
Right.
And you're only allowed to list 10 films, which is maddening because there's such a long history of cinema.
Yeah.
My approach was to try to find a way to represent great films that gave a historical range, so that I had silent films on it. I had and to try to represent foreign films on it, and to try to represent films directed by women on it, and so forth. Um, Maybe that wasn't the best way to do it, but that's one way of doing
Yeah.
it. I think other people just say, "Oh, here's my favorite movies." I think the Criterion folks now have a list of famous people who say, here are my 10 favorite movies.
Hmm.
And they're fine. It's interesting to see their taste and so forth. But yeah, I don't know. There's not much historical representation in those kind of lists.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. What did you think of the fact that Jeanne Dielman took the number one spot this time?
Uh, I think it's an important film.
Yeah.
I was surprised that it was number one. Uh, if you asked me to list my favorite films number one, I don't think I would have listed it. Uh, but but it's okay with me if it's number one. I also said to Craig, because we'd had a conversation before when I've been doing the Sight and Sound thing. When Citizen Kane for a long time had been number one, and it sort of fell off. As you know, I've written a book about Orson Welles. He's
Yes.
one of my favorite directors. Uh, but I was glad when Citizen Kane was no longer number one, because it puts a big burden on the film.
Right.
If I were when I was showing Citizen Kane to a class of students, I always felt uh, they all knew it had been called the best film of all time, and that's too much going in, too much of an expectation,
That's true.
and it almost sets up a chip on their shoulder about the film. When I first saw Citizen Kane, I think I was in high school, and it was a re-release of it. I was crazy to go see it because I knew it was a famous film, uh, and it was okay. But I thought, I don't know, I didn't fully get it at first. So, so in a way, that kind of number one ranking is a burden
Mm.
for
Yeah.
the film,
Yeah. That's a good point. Uh, you've done a number of audio commentaries for Criterion and other boutique
right?
Blu-ray DVD labels. I was listening to your Sweet Smell of Success one earlier
Yeah,
because I love that movie.
yeah, me too.
How do you yeah, and you also have the book, of course, the BFI book on Sweet Smell of Success. How do you approach audio commentaries? Do you script at all, or how do you?
It's varied. An awful lot of them I've done with Jonathan Rosenbaum. A lot of the
Yeah,
Wells stuff we got asked to do together. Excuse me. And Jonathan has a different approach to it than I do. I want to. I go into with in my mind points I want to make about the film, and sort of as the film goes along. Whereas Jonathan just kind of wants to rap about the film. He just wants to, so it can go any direction.
it's
Sometimes
his
that works.
jazz influence, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes that works really well, and sometimes not.
Right.
I I when we did the dual interview about Kane, for example, I kept thinking, oh, I wanted to say this or I wanted to say that, and the conversation just didn't get a chance for
Right.
it. Yeah.
What so when
But
you do it solo,
there's no real way to prepare for it. I think
right.
with the sweet smell of success, uh, I think that was the one I enjoyed doing the most because I had written the little BFI book, and I more or less tried to reproduce that book
Oh, I see.
in talking about the film. So it was not difficult. And the guy who was I can't remember his name. I only worked with him once, but the fellow who was doing it, I thought was very good. You know, he had me go back and talk about X, which we'd already talked about, talk about it in a different way, or give him
Oh,
some
okay.
alternative stuffs to edit. You know, and so I think that worked well.
I see. So it was somewhat directed then while you were doing it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the way it
interesting.
always works. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
interesting.
thought the one I was most disappointed in was Chimes at Midnight. I think I made a mistake of talking about Shakespeare more than Wells. Uh,
Ah,
and there were moments when I wasn't saying anything, and I don't think they managed the sound system very well with that. But otherwise, it was okay.
and so, but you're not. Are you working from a script, or you just tell yourself to make sure you say
Sometimes
certain?
if I'm working alone, like with this Sweet Smell of Success or with Chimes at Midnight, I can take some notes in, you know, and maybe even write up a little stuff and use that.
Hmm.
Um, but what you're doing is the film is being projected, and you're talking about it as it's being projected.
Yeah,
So anyway, yeah,
yeah. I was fortunate to do one last year. On Have you ever seen the film called The Valley of the Bees?
yeah.
Yeah, and I was asked to do it, and I think I watched it 5 times before doing it because I was like, I better know this film inside and out because I found it
Yeah,
quite challenging.
yeah, it is. It's not easy. Yeah.
No, but I enjoyed doing it. Well, again, the book is called Cinema Then and Now: Conversations with Craig S. Simpson. If people want to get the book, Jim, where would you suggest they go?
Well, Sticking Place Books has a website. It's available, you know, on Amazon and all those places. But there's no particular place. There's a couple of places you can get a copy of it. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll leave the link to Sticking Place Books in the description box below for
Okay.
where people can go to get it, and as well as Jim, your website as well. Is that do you actively update the website or?
Yeah. I have a website. Unfortunately it's always I don't work on it frequently enough, but yeah, it's pictured there. I don't. You can't order it from my website though.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Right.
and
But
and I also just did a book with my wife. The first time I
yes,
ever
I was just going to
collaborated
ask
on a
you.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Pedro Costa, and uh, so yeah, that's out there too. That's published by Indiana University Press.
Right. Yes. Okay. And that's already out, or is that still
Yeah,
yet to be
yeah,
out?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Actually, one last question that comes to mind is I'm always fascinated by I think I mentioned to you last time we spoke that I met Charles Burnett and talking and he was doing a Q&A about Killer of Sheep and people were pointing out things that they saw in the film which he hadn't thought of while
Uh-huh.
making it. So I'm always interested in that connection between what scholars and critics
Yeah,
see, but the filmmaker didn't necessarily think of. Is that because they're working from an instinctual place sometimes, like that creative part of
exactly.
their
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think that's probably true of all creative artists. I mean, the critic comes along and tries to have an opinion about it and analyze it, and very often I suspect that the people I think I said at one point in the interview book, Craig asked whether you were supposed to be able to talk about the artist's intentions,
right,
and my argument is not only not, there's something called the intentional fallacy that's been around in critical theory for a very long time, and basically it's don't write about the artist's intentions. Very often the artist doesn't even know what the
right,
artist's intention was. And so the idea is to D.H. Lawrence had a line: "Trust the tale, not the teller."
right.
So the tale or the artistic work is out there for everybody, and you can have interesting things to say about it, but they're not definitive, and the artist's intention is never definitive as a way
Mm,
of talking about it.
right, right. And lastly, what springs to mind? There is some things about your personal life. Were any of those things difficult to talk about, or were you
No, no, I
open
didn't
to?
mind. I didn't linger on. But I did have a difficult childhood, as you'll
Yeah,
know if you read the book.
right.
My parents died when I was young,
Hmm.
and I had a kind of a semi-orphanized upbringing. Um, uh, but the movies were a great release for me. I
Hmm.
was born in Louisiana, and it was hot and muggy all the time. And whenever I could go to the movies, I felt like, wow, I was now in a world it was
Yes.
comfortable like a womb or something. And I think that's one of the things that made me a movie buff.
Hmm. And they were air conditioned always.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I heard Scorsese. I don't know if you saw the Mr. Scorsese, that new series that Rebecca Miller did on documentary series, and because of his asthma, his father
Oh,
would take him to movie theater after movie theater because they were air conditioned.
aha.
So that sparked
Yeah,
his love of movies,
yeah,
which I thought
yeah,
I didn't know that. It was an interesting story.
yeah. Well, he and I have, I've never met him, but he and I have something in common because I think I mentioned in the interview book, he once held up a book called by Deems Taylor called A Pictorial History of the Movies,
Oh yes, yes,
and said he read that when he was a child, and he wanted to, or he wanted to steal it, and I did steal it.
right,
Or at least I never returned it to the library. I still
right.
have it, and
Oh,
that was a
funny.
huge influence on me. That boy, I love that book.
They're probably still after you for those late fees, maybe.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
After all these years.
yeah.
Well, again, the book is called Cinema Then and Now: Conversations with Craig S. Simpson. Highly recommend getting it. Jim, thank you again.
Sure.
I really appreciate you coming on. And I know last time I said I still have I have your Kubrick book and your Wells book. So I'll hopefully have you back to discuss those down the road.
Okay. Well, fine. Anytime. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. And for those of you watching, thank you so much for watching.